hands-free? So, okay.
If we can adjust this.
Yeah.
All righty. Can everybody hear me okay? Is that good? Close enough? All righty. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to come and talk this morning. Mental health for moms, what a relevant topic. There are many stressors in our current culture that impact moms' mental health, and I'll be talking about some of those as we go through this morning. If kids just had dads, it might not be such a good thing. So I want to start today by sharing a personal story. It's embarrassing, it's funny, but it's also true. And it happened right here in this church. I can almost take you out to the exact spot where it happened. About 30 years ago, there was a dad, and that would be me, with a wife and 2 young daughters. They were about 3 and 6 back then. Some of you know them. My wife had left, and she was on a weekend mental health getaway with some other moms at the coast. So I'm pretty sure that the getaway was to get away from me and not the girls. But before she left, my wife, that would be the mom in this story, very lovingly and carefully selected the outfits for the girls to wear to church on Sunday and laid them out for me. Sunday morning arrived, and I got the girls up, I fed them breakfast, I got them dressed for church, and we even got here on time. Now, all was going pretty good until we got to church. As we walked into church, we met another mom who looked at my daughter, and it seemed like kind of odd. And then she looked at me, and then she looked back at my daughter. And then she very nicely said something to the effect of, "Honey, I think your daddy put your clothes on backwards, and we need to fix that." Actually, I think it was Carol Bowler who did that, really. She then whisked my daughter away and brought her back in a few minutes with her outfit installed properly. But, I've got an excuse. It's like, how would I know? I was the oldest of 4 boys, and we wore boots, jeans, and sometimes even a shirt. But I did have a sister, but she was barely 4 years old when I left home for the Marine Corps. So it was like, what did I know about dressing kids? Well, that was humbling enough. That was, humbling enough being a dad and doing this. But the bigger problem was that within about 5 minutes, the whole church knew that Dr. Huggins had put the clothes on his daughter backwards because she had told everyone very proudly that she could run into, "My daddy put my clothes on backwards today." So, well, I don't know if it was the whole church, but it was certainly several friends and her Sunday school class too. So I told my wife that I was going to share this story today, and she still remembered it. I thought she would have forgotten it long ago, but no such luck. So that is why we have moms, because dads can't do it. So, when you think about dads, we put the dishes in the dishwasher wrong, we put groceries in the cupboards wrong, we sometimes drive and park wrong, and we definitely mess up dressing our kids. So, it is good that kids have moms. Being a mom is ordained by God, and it's a good thing, but it's also exhausting. And it's interesting that one of the very first stories we read about in the New Testament is a mom who is having mental health distress. And you might be able to relate to this story. So in Luke chapter 2, we read about a mom and dad that were traveling with their 12-year-old son. They had traveled with friends to Jerusalem to observe the Passover feast. This was an annual tradition, and the Bible says, as it was their custom, means they had done it many, many times. They'd done this trip year after year after year. Well, they had celebrated the feast, and now it was time to leave. The family leaves, supposing that their son was traveling with them, and they travel a whole day. So if you can imagine walking a whole day, that's about probably 7 to 10 miles. And where I live in Eagle Creek, that's 8 miles from here. So imagine walking from here out to Eagle Creek. And at the end of the day, the Bible says that his parents sought him diligently, that would be Jesus, looking up and down for him among their kinfolk and their acquaintances. And when they failed to find him, they went back to Jerusalem. So think, being in Eagle Creek, time to have your fish and chips. Now you're walking all the way back here to Damascus, and they're looking for him all along the way, it says, up and down. Now they're back in Jerusalem, but that's no piece of cake either, because after searching for him for 3 days, so you can imagine the conversations going on between mom and dad about, this event. Well, if you wouldn't have let him do that, or you wouldn't have let him do this, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this. So 3 days they sought him diligently, looking for him. And finally, they find him in the temple asking questions of the teachers. Now, here's the best part. Verse 48 says, "And when they, Joseph and Mary, saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, 'Son, why have you done this to us? Here your father and I have been anxiously looking for you, distressed and tormented.'" There are probably other words I might have said, and I'm not sure I would be elder qualified still after going through that experience looking for a child for 3 days. So as a mom, does that sound familiar? It's like, son, daughter, why have you done this? Probably everyone at the tables here have a story about that. Think crayons, markers, crumbs, spilled milk, etc. And Mary was understandably an anxious mom when she couldn't find her son. Someone has said, silence is golden unless you have kids, then silence is just suspicious. Right, not too long after Linda asked me to speak, I was visiting my daughter, the same one that I put the clothes on backwards, and that daughter now has 2 young boys giving her her own grief, so it's equal. But I was visiting her, and I was in Trader Joe's picking up some potato chips, and I saw a woman wearing a black hoodie. We'll assume that she was a mom. And I paid attention because she had this hoodie, and it had definition of mom on the hoodie. It said, "A mother is one person who does the work of 20, works 24/7, 365 days a year, with no days off, for free." Now, it's no wonder, if that's your job description, that there might be some mental health issues to be concerned about, because anyone who has that kind of a job is going to have some stress in their life. So loving your kids doesn't mean it's easy, and as it says on your paper there, it's not easy being a mom. If it were easy, dads would do it. So God does care about our mental health. He created us as whole people. We have a mind to think with, we have body, we have spirit. And godly people, including godly moms, can get overwhelmed. We experience guilt, distress, frustration, anxiety, fear, loneliness. And just to give a couple of quick biblical examples, we think of Elijah in 1 Kings, and he had been threatened by Jezebel, and he's described as being exhausted, discouraged, needing rest and care. And the scriptures write about Elijah, he went a day's journey into the wilderness, and he sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take my life away, for I am not better than my fathers." And that was Elijah. And then we have David. And David had written many Psalms. I just wrote down one here, where David writes about his anxiety, his despair, his fears. Psalms 143 says, "For the enemy has persecuted my soul. He hath smitten my life down to the ground. He hath made me to dwell in darkness as those who have been long dead. Therefore is my spirit overwhelmed within me. My heart within me is desolate." And then in Jesus, we see him in Luke and Mark both, where he withdrew to rest and pray. So struggling emotionally, being a mom and having emotional struggles is not spiritual failure. The very godly men have had spiritual difficulties. Needing rest, needing help is not a lack of faith. And needing to rest is also not a sign of laziness. We see that God, he created for 6 days, and on the 7th, he rested. Now, I want to talk about some of the unique mental loads that you as mom have. So if you want to turn your notes over, I probably should have written these down for you. If you want to flip your page over, these are just some examples that I came up with of some of the unique mental loads that mom have. And probably you will relate to these and can even add to them. But the first one is school-related pressures. Think about kids, particularly if you have kids in school, homework. I'm sure you've never had a challenge getting your kids to do homework. Or academic performance. How are my kids doing in school? Teacher communication, school expectations. All those are related to school. Another mom stress is overscheduling and logistics. Someone has to be the one to drop off the kids, pick up the kids from school, keeping track of the sports activities, play dates, birthday parties. All that is up here that we're carrying in our mind. Behavioral emotional challenges, sibling conflicts, friendship dramas, peer pressure, social dynamics, another problem. Relationships with other parents, helping your kids with their friendships, or when they get excluded from friendships. Technology concerns, screen time battles, when to allow the kids to have screen time, how much screen time, what screen time to have access to, another stress. And this is probably one of the bigger ones, household mental load, remembering forms, getting the snacks ready, being ready for appointments, knowing the clothing sizes. Most dads do not know the clothing size of all their kids wearing. Preparing meals. You know, think about it. What if dads were the only ones, and I know there are some dads that are great cooks and that, but what if dads were the only ones that did the meals? Some household they'd be eating McDonald's 3 times a day. And then just keeping your house functional with everyone busy. Work-life balance. So there are career demands along with the school schedule for your kids. Some moms deal with the issue of feeling guilty because I work too much. Other moms deal with the issue of feeling guilty because I'm not working at all. And you know that impacts our lifestyle. Limited time for self-care. Another unique mental load for moms is financial pressures. How do we pay for all these activities, for sports camp or for other camps, for school, for just life? And then the identity and emotional load, just feeling out of touch, losing my identity, just feeling overwhelmed, tired. Another mom said, sleep at this point is just a concept, something I'm looking forward to investigating in the future. So feeling overwhelmed does not mean that you are ungrateful, and loving your children and needing a break can both happen at the same time. So if you've ever felt like you're going crazy, maybe it's true, because it's been said that insanity, so let me try this again. It's been said that insanity is hereditary. You get it from your children. Okay. So now on your handout, you're going to look at some practical ways to care for your mental health. So you got your handout there. The first one is daily check-ins. So you can ask yourself, what am I feeling? What is it that I need today? It's important to try to name your feelings. Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? Anxious? Fearful? When you name your emotions, it helps your brain to regulate your emotions instead of just bottling them up. When I was working, I used to teach people, if you can name it, you can tame it. So can't do anything about it until you can name it. So what is it that I'm feeling? And then start your day with prayer, always being honest with God in the morning. And the nice thing about being a mom is we can pray anywhere, even in bed before you get up. And so praying, being honest with God about what it is that I need today. The next blank is develop a healthy support system. Now, the fact that you're here at Moms is a great place to start, because God designed us to live in fellowship, not in isolation from one another. And so that support system could consist of friends from church, community, other organizations, and there's research that has shown that marital satisfaction is at its lowest when the kids are youngest, and that as kids get older, marital satisfaction also goes up as well. Another thing to think about is professional help. Being a psychologist for 37 years, I had lots of moms that regularly came to me for help with counseling, not because they were terrible, horrible people, but just because they were dealing with normal, everyday stresses of being a mom. So if you're having persistent anxiety or depression or burnout, it's okay to consider seeking help if that is needed. The next blank is develop simple routines that are doable for you. Develop simple routines that are doable for you. So try to pick one small thing that belongs to you every day. It could be the hot coffee, could be the shower without rushing, could be listening to a podcast while you're cooking or doing the laundry. But these little simple things, they develop anchors in our life that create stability when everything around us seems unpredictable. Even exercise can be done, little ways of doing exercise. If your kids are old enough, you can think about parking farther away when you go shopping and then just getting a few extra steps walking in. Now, if you go to Costco, I was there the other day, no matter how old your kids are, you might be parking a half a mile away just to get in there. But think about quiet moments with God, even the short ones, or thinking about some activity that energizes you emotionally just because you enjoy doing it. The next blank is let go of guilt and perfectionism. Let go of guilt and perfectionism and have realistic expectations. You're not going to have perfect kids, and you're not going to be a perfect parent. I already told you. You saw me. I'm a long ways from a perfect parent. The only parent we have that is perfect is God, and sometimes we have to settle for good enough. And there are three questions that you can ask yourself, even on a hard day, is number one, is my child safe? Number two, is my child loved? So is my child safe? Is my child loved? And number three, is my child fed? And if you can say yes to those three things, my child is safe, my child is loved, my child is fed, you're doing enough even on the hard days. So remember that our value and worth is tied to who we are in Christ. And our value and worth, it's not measured by our productivity, by our patience, or by your Pinterest-level parenting, where everything is so perfect and put together. And I'll talk a little bit about just a little bit about social media, because there are good things about social media, bad things about social media. But one of the things is sometimes you look at what other people are saying, and that can raise anxiety and stress. And if you hadn't looked at it, you wouldn't even know what other people are saying. And then you realize that I spent however much time I spent looking at it, and all that did is keep me away from maybe talking or calling to somebody else. So social media is one of the questions I have for you to talk about at your table too, is in what way is social media a good, or can it be a problem? And then we can remember that God's mercies are new every morning, even after the hard days. And then the next blank is regulate before you react. Regulate before you react. Emotions are going to spike, and it doesn't matter whether you have young children or teens. Young kids have their spills and their tantrums and their chaos. And I don't know about you, but when my kids were little, the spill or the issue always happened right before you're getting ready to leave, or go to church, go to a party, go to school. That's when it happens. Now, if you got teenagers, then the older teens, that's another issue, because they can talk back and they can ask, why do I have to do that? Or make comments like, that's stupid. Sometimes even be disrespectful. I know that never happens, but occasionally. So it's good just to go back to the old, take a deep breath and count to 10. Just like, okay. And then they ask you what's going to happen. It's like, you don't want to ask me that right now, because if I answer that question right now, you probably are not going to be leaving the house until you're 21. So just take a deep breath. And when we do that, it helps our nervous system settle down so we don't snap. And if we do snap, you recover more quickly. So when you think about your mental health, taking care of yourself also is a blessing to your children. If you think about if you're on the airlines and they do that passenger pre-flight briefing, and they say, if we lose oxygen and the oxygen mask comes down, they don't say, hey, look at the other person, put the oxygen mask on the person next to you. They say, hey, this is down, take care of yourself first. Put the oxygen mask on yourself so that you can be effective in helping the other person. So when you think about your mental health, it's important to take care of yourself first as a mom so that you can bless your family and be able to be the mom that you want to be. STO, you can write this down. STO stands for Sarah, Tango, Oscar, small things often. We don't have to fix everything at once, just one little thing at a time. Small things often. And just say to yourself, one small step is enough for today. I've often said that it is not the perfection in our life that matters, it's the direction. We just need to be moving in the right direction. We don't need to be perfect. So the question for you to think about is, what is one small thing that you can do for your own mental health from what we have talked about this morning? And a great verse, this is a great verse for moms, Psalm 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous hand. And the Bible teaches that in moments when we're having that mental health duress, moments of fear, guilt, loneliness, inadequacy, even spiritual doubt, that God draws especially near to us at those times. And to be reminded that as a mom, sometimes even these harder moments, they can be sacred ones, time where you're able to sit with God and just be invited to speak, let him speak to your hearts and your minds. I want to finish today by reading a poem to you. And this poem is called That Kind of Mom. My daughter with her dolls would play to pass the time from day to day, and often in her play would be a loving mother just like me. But one day this I chanced to hear in girl-doll conversation dear, when I grow up a mom to be, I'll be different. Wait and see. My girl will simply have a ball. No making beds or sweeping halls. Her dress will be just as she please, in party frock or dungarees. And oatmeal ne'er will cross her lips, nor liver bland or veggie mix. But candy, sweet, and light as air, and luscious food shall be her fare. Her bedtime I shall not dictate. It may be midnight, 10 or 8. Yes, that's the style life for me, and then my little girl will be. And here I heard her hesitate, as though she stopped to meditate on what results would come about if such a plan were carried out. And then her voice piped up again. You know, considering how it's been, my mom's done very good by me. Yes, she's the kind of mom to be. And I hope you can all be that kind of mom. That was written by somebody you might know, Terry Huggins. Okay. So. Alrighty, so I have plenty of time. I'm retired, so any questions, thoughts? Don't need to run off anywhere. And I did write some table questions for you to talk about with your, table leaders there.